Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Well, hello, folks. This is Kyle Watkins with the Carrington Group, and my co-host today are Dr. Blair Ritchie with the International Student Foundation. My co-host partners with Carrington Group, Jason Smith, Tyler Tallman. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome. Great to be on.
Perfect. And then our guest today is Leonard Lynskey, and excited to have you here, and good to get to chat with you this morning. But we always like to start off with some leadership trivia. And so, Dr. Blair, what do you got for us today?
Now, usually, you guys figure these out, right? And you know who they are. But today, if you figure this one out, I'm buying lunch today. All right, so here we go.
Ooh.
Today's legendary leader started as a divorced mother living without electricity, washed her children's diapers by hand in water heated on a wooden stove. At the age of 36, she met a reclusive beekeeper who was selling his honey on the side of the road for $12 a gallon. This entrepreneurial leader was working as a waitress at the time, but she saw an opportunity. She decided to sell honey in smaller beehive-shaped jars to tourists, made a little extra money that way. And then she branched out into other products, beginning with beeswax lip balm. She once said that success does not come from one brilliant idea, but from a bunch of small decisions that accumulate over the years. You shouldn't underestimate the amount of work and fear that are involved. Wise words. And her series of small decisions led to Burt's Bees becoming one of the most successful brands in the healthcare lip balm industry. So who is this legendary leader? I'll be back at the end of the show to see if you've Googled it and figured it out.
I just put that lip balm on in the car, but I don't have a clue who it is.
My son's in baseball, and he does a lot outside, and he lives with Burt's Bees.
Yeah. And now you say that, now I need some.
I know.
Right?
Onward we go.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, today our guest is Leonard Lynskey. We were talking about this before the show. We had a mutual contact and told us you guys have got to meet each other. I'm glad that he did. So it's been wonderful getting to know him here recently. And Leonard likes to ask, what are your 2 a.m. questions? As the owner of a pharmacy that had grown from $2 million in revenue in 2007 to over $32 million in revenue by the end of 2011, Leonard's questions were: how do I make more profit? How can I increase productivity within my staff? How do I get my business under control so that I'm running my business instead of my business running me? In 2012, he came across an EOS Implementer, and soon after he began implementing the EOS model in his business, this simple set of tools and disciplines allowed Leonard and his team to turn a $2 million loss into a $1.2 million profit, get everyone in the company aligned around where he was going and how he's going to get there, and he is able to manage the business proactively instead of playing whack-a-mole with all the issues facing the team. In January of 2018, Leonard completed a successful exit from the business, and after his exit, and having spent several years spent mastering the system of his own company as well as coaching fellow business owners through their respective frustrations, Leonard realized his true calling was to help entrepreneurs with their journey through EOS. Since becoming a professional EOS implementer, he has successfully helped many clients to get more of what they want from their business. Leonard, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
I'm well. There's a lot there. I'm excited to dive into it, but we always like to, start off, ask some, a little bit about your background, your upbringing. Did you have any experiences that really helped get you on this path?
So I come from very humble beginnings. My parents came off the farm, and neither one of them went to college. I mean, my dad was a $6 an hour worker when I was a kid. And so if we wanted anything extra, we had to go to work. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of always had the entrepreneurial bug and thought, how can I do more? And so when in my early life, I mowed yards and had paper routes, and as a matter of fact, one of the best lessons I ever learned was when I was a kid. I was throwing the Garland Daily News.
Okay.
And it was Monday through Friday and Sunday morning. And I had 3 paper routes. I had about 300 customers. And I was trying to figure out a way to street. And, we did all of our collections. We threw it and rolled it and did all the collections. And I was trying to figure out a way to streamline the collection process because it was very manual. You had to go door to door and knock, get people to write a check. So I started putting collection envelopes in the paper at the end of the month so people could just mail their checks in, kind of like they did with the Dallas Morning News. Well, what I failed to realize was that part of the charm of getting a local paper was having a local kid deliver the paper. And when I sort of commoditized it by trying to streamline this collection process, 20% of my clients quit because I kind of burst that bubble. So it was a very important lesson in how to make sure you understand what your clients' needs are.
Absolutely. So getting this entrepreneurial bug early, how did you feed it? Where did that take you from there? Getting a little bit of taste of that, you're working and you're, getting benefit of it. But how did you nurture that, and where did that take you from there?
Well, I had originally decided I was going to be a lawyer, and I went to work in a local pharmacy when I was a kid, and it was really cool that the pharmacist could stand around and drink coffee all day, but could really make an impact on people's lives, one person at a time. And, by making recommendations and filling their prescriptions and stuff like that. At the time, pharmacies were the second most successful small businesses in America. And so I decided that I could kind of kill 2 birds with one stone, wanting to make a difference in the lives of people and running my own business or being an entrepreneur. So I went to pharmacy school so that I could open my own business.
So right out of school, did you were you an apprentice? Did you buy a new shop? How did you get started?
So my first job out of school, I worked for a pharmacy in Rusk, Texas. I went to work for an absentee owner, and he basically let me run the business, very hands off, and really taught me, really cut my teeth on, how to, all of it. I ran the day-to-day operations, ordered all the drugs, ordered all the front end stuff. We had charge accounts, we delivered, so it was all the customer experiences, it was dealing with the accountants, it was managing the P&L, and it's really where it was sort of my entree into owning pharmacies. It was a great laboratory and a great way to learn.
Leonard, where'd you go to school?
University of Houston.
Awesome. Oh, he's a cougar.
I'm a cougar.
Yeah.
So with an absentee owner, then what were your influences, or how did you begin to develop leadership skills to interface with these various professionals and I imagine at least a handful of employees that you would oversee? Where did those leadership traits begin to develop or come from?
I think that to a certain extent, if you're a leader, you have innate abilities, although they're rough and need to be sanded. So you just, my thing was always, I'm not going to ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do. And the goal was always to make sure that we were taking good care of the customers and that we were meeting their needs. And I really, from an early age, considered my customers to be not only the people that were walking into the stores, but my clients, my vendors. And so, you wanted to treat them with integrity. You wanted to be fair. And that was sort of innate in me. I really didn't get formal leadership training until later when I was working for a division of CVS, and they had staff development people in there, and we started going to seminars, and I started learning the language and how to really hone my leadership abilities to make them even more effective. But I think it was kind of always in there.
Leonard, one of my favorite questions that I get to ask guests is, it seems like when you come out of college, you're 22 and you are willing to take all kinds of risks and you're just eager to get out there and start your journey. But there's always this time where you look back and reflect on, what do I know now that I didn't know then? So my question for you is, what would you tell yourself as a 20-something coming out of college? What would the advice you'd give yourself now, knowing what you know in business? You like that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably important. I think the only if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're still going to take risks. When people ask me what it's like, I tell them all the time, being an entrepreneur is like jumping off a cliff and knitting your net on the way down. The advice I would give you is make sure that you have enough materials around you. Make sure you have enough information to make good decisions, and then surround yourself with really smart people to help you get better faster. So
good mentors then.
Good mentors, absolutely.
Yeah,
good mentors, good team members, absolutely.
So what are a couple of mentors that you remember from an early age that had a huge influence on your life?
I worked for a pharmacist when I was a kid, that first job I had when I was 15, who'd been a pharmacist for 35 years. And it was really, that's where I got my whole customer service bent. It was just all about take care of the customers. If you do what's right for the customers, then the rest of it will follow. And then I had a pharmacist that I worked for that he owned actually one of the largest independent pharmacy in Dallas back in the 70s, and I learned a lot from him. And that was more about do what's right for the customers, but you also have to do what's right for the business, and so you have to find that balance. And then I was in Vistage for 9 years, and there was a gentleman that was my Vistage leader that is still one of my mentors. That it was almost like a father to me, and he really, really taught me how to really think like a leader.
Mm-hmm. So as the leader of your pharmacy, you talked about in a bio, you went from a $2 million loss to a $1.2 million profit. Can you help us understand kind of where that story and that transition, like where you were, where you found yourself, and then some of the hard decisions that you had to make to, turn that battleship around?
So I have started or bought four or five pharmacies throughout my career. 4 of them ended successfully, one of them not so much. This one, I had started a pharmacy with my wife and daughter in 1996, and it grew really, really fast, and we sold it to CVS 2 years later, or a company that eventually got bought by CVS. So I was working for CVS, and if you've ever worked for yourself and then go back to work for an employer, mm-hmm. It's hard. Yeah, at least for me, and I wasn't a very good employee. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my daughter had just had a baby and was looking for something to do, and I was looking for something that didn't involve working for corporate America, and so we started a pharmacy in 2001. Kind of limped along. In 2005, a nurse walked in and said, "I've got this subset of patients that have some unique needs, and we need somebody to service them." And we were starving, so we said, "Well, we'll do it." And they were intellectually and developmentally disabled clients that lived in halfway houses. And so we started servicing these 4 patients, which were connected to a company that had 6 other houses in Dallas, and which then had locations in other cities. Realized very quickly that this was an underserved market, and so we very quickly shifted our focus to where we were moving away from retail and to providing this service to these clients. From 2007 to 2011, we grew from about $2 million in revenue to $32 million in revenue. And because we found the right niche that was underserved, and we created a lot of value adds around the service, around the prescriptions, and it was all additional services that they needed. Through technology, we were able to add those values at no charge, and it really resonated with the client base who had been underserved, as I said, had been underserved. And so because of that, we filled a void and grew very, very quickly. So, on the outside, it was awesome. I was on the Inc. 5000 list 4 years in a row. Along with my daughter, and she was my COO. And our customers, we were filling this cool need. It was a great story, but the reality is, when you grow that fast, if you don't have structure and discipline within your organization, it's going to be ugly. It takes a lot of cash to grow, which I didn't really appreciate. I'm a visionary and an entrepreneur, so my answer to everything is just get more business, and I can outgrow any problem that might arise.
Say yes and figure it out later, like most entrepreneurs.
Say yes and figure it out later. Absolutely, man. That was my mantra. Well, at the end of 2011, after having hit our pinnacle at $32 million in sales, we were 50 days behind with our primary vendor, and we had to do an audit because they were going to take us, because they were tired of my stories. Anyway, so we did the audit. We lost $2 million. About $500,000 of it was operational losses. The other $1.5 million was 10 years of entrepreneurial accounting.
Right.
And so, you know, we just didn't know what to do. We were stuck, and we were leaking cash from 50 different places because we didn't have good controls. We didn't have good systems in place. So, you know, someone could call the pharmacy and ask a question, and we had 8 customer service representatives, and you could ask the same question to each of the 8 reps, and you might get 8 different answers. There was no consistency. We were missing delivery times. We were missing customer commitments. Our employees were miserable. I mean, the thing was just a mess. And I just, you know, we didn't know what to do. And we were on a short lease with our vendor, and it was literally, I'm sitting up at 2 o'clock in the morning at the kitchen table with something in a glass going, what am I going to do?
Well, how'd you take ownership of that and decide to take action, or what'd you do? Like, what eventually sparked change?
So I was in as I mentioned, I was in Vistage, and there was a guy in my Vistage group who had gone through something similar to me. You know, they had a fast-growing company that was having cash flow problems and finding the right people and all of those things. And he was using the system called EOS. And so he put me in contact with the gentleman that implemented the system in his company, and we started implementing EOS. And really, the really cool thing about it is, and what people don't understand is, business is kind of like sports. It's at its core, you have to do the simple things really well. I mean, think about a baseball player. When you're out, if you're an infielder and a ground ball comes to you, if you watch these guys, they still get down on one knee. They still use 2 hands. I mean, it's basic. It's the basic fundamentals to being a great baseball player. And when they get off track, it's because they've moved away from those fundamentals. And what we learned through this journey was you have to be good at the fundamentals. You have to do the X's and O's. You have to do them consistently. You have to do them with discipline. You have to do them with accountability. And what we lacked in that organization as we were growing so fast was any discipline and accountability around execution, goal setting, and executing our priorities.
So it's like the whole idea of autopilot. You know, you think about it all the time. Now the planes that we get in fly themselves, and similar to what you're talking about, what happens when something goes wrong, and now suddenly you got to have your head in the game. Same thing with a baseball player. You get away because you're just so good at what you do. You can be lazy. You don't, you know, and you get away from that stuff, and the next thing you know, it's rolling up on you pretty quick, right?
Absolutely. And you know, when you're having a lot of success, it can mask a lot of problems. You know, if you're growing, you don't realize the cash flow issues you're creating on the other side if you ever stop growing or even shrink. You know, everybody loves you, and you've got all this new business coming in, and so you're not thinking about, you know, what happens when I can't run this out of my pocket anymore, and I've got 60 people, and they've got to communicate with each other effectively. They all have to do things the same way. Everybody's got to know where we're going and how we're going to get there. They have to be able to execute on that vision with discipline and accountability. What happens is these voids start to create, and people fill the voids with whatever they think is the right thing to do. But if 60 people are all thinking I have the way, and nobody's actually given them a direction or guidance, then you got 60 people and the boat's just going in circles. And when boats go in circles, they're circling the drain.
So essentially, Leonard has just described the Carrington Group model. What got you here won't get you there. So you're describing a lot of our clients that you know, you just do what you have to do to get where you want to go, and then all of a sudden you go, man, I'm in a great place, but I need a lot of help. So a great segue into EOS as well.
Yeah. My favorite game was standing by the mailbox, looking to see what checks were coming in that day.
So as a leader, you know, that pharmacy, and you're turning around, what are some things that you've taken out of that experience? It makes me your quote guy, the Winston Churchill, if you're going through hell, keep going. Now that you've survived and come out on the other end, how does that work with you being an EOS implementer, and you're on the other side of the table. So how does that help you in communicating with other entrepreneurs going through similar experiences?
Well, so I think that where the value is that I think my experience is not unique. And I think it comes down to what Tyler said, is that you put your head down and all you're trying to do is you're trying to keep the door open another day. You're trying to get that next customer. You're trying to get that, make that next payroll, pay that next vendor. And so what happens is you don't ever look up and go, oh, wow, I need to manage this whole thing more holistically and from a 50,000 foot level rather than just worrying about where the next thing is coming from. So having been through that, it makes it really easy for me to relate to the entrepreneurs and their teams that I'm talking to that are on that side of the table now, because I know their pain. I understand the fear, the embarrassment, the inadequacy that they feel, which they should not. But you can't help it because you look up and you've created this thing that on the outside looks phenomenal, but on the inside is kind of a mess.
How do you help pull them out of that?
Blocking and tackling. So with EOS, what it is a simple set of simple tools. It's a methodology. It's not anything, it's not a quick fix. It's not a gimmick. It is a simple set of time-tested tools, business tools, concepts and disciplines that help leaders get a grip on their business. And the basic premise is that every business, irrespective of industry, has 6 components that they all share. Vision, you got to know where you're going, how you're going to get there. Data, you got to run your business with objective information and not feelings or emotions. You can't wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, oh my Lord, what am I going to do? We're going to do this. You need a little data. Got to have the right people in the right seats. I've read Good to Great 3 times. Jim Collins everybody talks about getting the right people in the right seats. You read Jim Collins, you go to work on Monday morning, you open the book, and you go, it doesn't tell me what to do.
Right.
It tells me I got to have them, but it doesn't tell me how I'm going to get them and keep them. And then once you get clear on your vision, data, and people, all of your issues and impurities and imperfections are really going to start to surface. So you got to have a really great way to really solve your issues as they arise and get them off the table. You got to have processes so that you're doing the really important things the same way every day so that you're consistent and scalable and more profitable. And then finally, you have to be able to bring that vision down on the ground and execute it with discipline and accountability. And so that's what EOS did for us. We were able to, I literally walk in with a handbook and it's like, okay, here's the manual. We're going to open it to section 1, page 1. This is the first step. And so, you go to all these seminars and you see all these great speakers and you hear people talk about all these great business ideas, and it's so awesome. But the reality is you go to these things and you get real excited, and then you walk into your office Monday morning and you sit down and you say, what's step 1? What did he say? And then 2 months go by and the phone rings and the bank calls and a customer gets mad, and then that thing that was so great just goes away. So with EOS, it's a how to make my business better so that I can get control of my business, and more importantly, I can get my life back.
And one of the phrases I like out of that model is the delegate and elevate concept. And I'm curious, how do you begin to train other leaders? How do you begin to provide them opportunities to show what they're capable of?
So what we do with Delegate and Elevate is the first thing we do is we create what their function is in the organization and what their 5 most important roles and responsibilities. So this is what you do for the organization, not your title, but the function in the organization that you perform. And if you do these 5 things consistently, this function will be successful. And then what you do is you look at all of the things you do in a given day and you pick the things that you are good at and that you love, because that's where you're going to bring the most value to the organization. And the things that you don't like doing or that you hate doing and that you don't like doing and you're good at, or that you hate doing and you're not good at, you delegate those to people who do love those things. Mm-hmm. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that the activities that you're doing is what you love and what you're passionate about, and more importantly, where you drive them, and that will let you drive the most value to your organization. Most entrepreneurs will just hang on to this stuff because it's like, oh, I can't give this away because I got to teach somebody how to do it, and it takes time, and then they're going to have questions, and I'll just do it myself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that you're holding yourself back, and you're holding your organization back. So the more of this stuff you can give away and really focus on what you love and where you bring the most value and allow other people to do the same, it'll really move your business forward.
I was really excited about Leonard coming on today because of all the systems that we've all looked at. I mean, we're all guilty of going to a conference, no matter what industry we've been in. We come out with that really pretty folder with all the different speakers and all these different ideas. Or, we go to a training seminar and we take, 20 pages of notes and all this cool stuff. And the truth of it is, if you look back from, at the end of the year, you go, man, I didn't do any of that, or I did less than, 5% of any of that. And this system is the only system I've ever seen that it didn't reinvent the wheel. It just literally took the best of every reading you've done, all the great leadership speakers, and said, okay, here's now a system to figure out how to do it. And it's so practical to me. And I think with business owners and entrepreneurs out there, Leonard, they get overwhelmed because it's something else they've got to go learn or something else they've got to go do, and they don't have the time for that. And what I like about EOS and what you're bringing to the table as an EOS implementer is this is practical, it's simple, it's easy to access, and it's good for everybody, whether you're $1 million top line business or you're a $50 million top line business. This works for everyone. Or if you've got 5 employees or 500 employees, it works. And so I just think it's such a attainable way of approaching your business, and really relates to what we're doing with Carrington and you getting clarity and perspective of what's important to you in your life on the personal side. EOS is doing the same thing on the business side, and they really tie together. So,
yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Leonard, been great to have you. Get to chat a little bit and everything, and this clock goes pretty quick. But we always like to wrap up with the answer to trivia.
Yeah, man, Leonard, thanks for sharing your story, because you model the humility that it takes to really embrace where you're at and get the help you need to take it to where it needs to go. And you've done that, and you're helping others do that. And that's an awesome story.
Thank you.
And when I shared that quote about never underestimate the amount of work and fear it takes to succeed in business, from today's trivia answer, I thought about you as you're talking your story. That quote was so perfect, because it's just true. Those small decisions you make accumulate over years, and that leads to success. So, guys, who was?
No idea.
No, I couldn't see that far.
Burt's Bees, Bert Shavitz, became a little more wealthy because one day Roxanne Quimby came into his life. Roxanne Quimby is today's entrepreneurial leader.
Excellent.
Go buy some Burt's Bees.
Yeah, there you go.
She'll be happy.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to make sure we didn't forget one thing. If you're a listener and you're an entrepreneur and you go, that is me, what we're talking about, what's the best way for them to be able to access you, Leonard, and the skill set that you're bringing to the table for entrepreneurs?
Give me a call. Check my website, www.lynskeymanagement.com. You can go on the EOS Worldwide website and put in the zip code 75087 and click Find a Implementer, and I'll come up that way as well. Or you can call me at 214-668-7761.
That's awesome. And I know in the bottom of our podcast feed today, that information is there. Seriously, if this is you, even if you think it's a part of you, take advantage of this, because I think Leonard brings some really cool stuff to the table.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
One last reminder before we sign off today. Legends of Leadership is hosting its first luncheon.
Yes, we
coming up, and it's just 3 weeks away. So May 1st, if you're in North Dallas, man, come to ISF's website, because you can get a ticket to our first ever Legends of Leadership podcast or luncheon. Yeah. Super guest Michael Franzese, who former mob boss and lived to tell about it, is going to be inspiring some leaders that day. So we would love to have as many of you come. Bring a friend. Again, it's the Clubs of Prestonwood, May 1st. That's a great luncheon.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's going to be great. Well, folks, that's it for our podcast today. On behalf of Dr. Blair Ritchie, Jason Smith, Tyler Tallman, and our special guest, Leonard Lynskey, this is Kyle Watkins wishing you a good day. Remember this: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group, Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.